Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
Question for you. How many potential new patients is your practice losing every month? Not how many should you be getting or how many you are getting, but how many are you losing? In other words, how many opportunities is your office blowing? And this may get you thinking, how would you even know this? Well, I'll show you. It's actually not that difficult to find out. But let me start by telling you what inspired me to ask this question in the first place, because as I was about to do this episode, it was almost like a rant, okay? If you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, you'll notice that I've done several episodes on receptionists, phone skills, how new patient calls should be handled, new patient coordinators, etc. I've also discussed new patient conversion rates, meaning what percentage of the prospective new patients calling your practice actually schedule and show up. In other words, I hit on this a ton, and yet to this day, I find myself listening to recordings of these things, and it's just still, for the most part, bad. And I try to take as many opportunities to listen to these types of calls, to keep myself, with my finger on the pulse of what's going on out there, as well as to help newer clients. But what makes things even scarier is I've spoken to newer clients that have learned a lot of what I've covered in these previous episodes or we cover in our program, and they still have some of these same problems. And again, I can't tell you how frustrating this is. Maybe because it's so easy to handle. The amount of effort you would have to expend is minimal compared to the potential rewards if you just fix how your phone is handled. We're talking about maybe a few hours a month of your time for an additional 10, 20, or 30 new patients per month. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe people just don't believe me. I don't know, because the clients that I've taught this to and seen them do this, they see the benefit, they see the result, and they see the extra new patients that they're getting because they're capturing the lost opportunities. But maybe for the most part, it sounds almost too good to be true. I mean, I'll tell you, is you could try it and it's not going to hurt you, so you could at least do that. But I'm telling you, it's sitting right there. And to be clear, a lot of the offices that I see have problems with this are very together practices. These are good people, these doctors and managers. They're competent. These offices are productive. They're just missing out on a potentially enormous benefit due to lack of oversight. So for this week's episode, I'm going to explain how to handle this, meaning how to analyze what's going on with new patients in your practice by using a simple series of steps, and from there, how to fix what you find and start seeing more new patients ASAP. My name is Jeff Blumberg, and I'm your host. And where I'm going to begin with this is we're going to cover a few things that you would need to analyze this or get control of this area. A lot of this you already have, by the way. So what's the first thing? If you came to me and said, Jeff, could you tell me how many new patients I'm losing and how I could fix this? Well, here's the things I would ask you for. The first thing I would ask you for is, do you have the ability to record your incoming calls? Now, when I survey this in a seminar, I would say 90 to 95% of the hands go up that they do have this ability. At least they're recording some of their calls. The company they work with to send out postcards has a special phone number on the postcard, and those calls are recorded. Or they do Google pay-per-click, and that has a special number that people call in off of, and those calls are recorded. Whatever, or they may just record all of their calls coming into the practice. There may be different ways that they do this. Now, most of them don't do anything with these calls when they come in, but they are recorded at least. So there's that, right? So chances are, if you're listening to this, you have this ability and you already record these calls. You may not be listening to them, but you have this ability. If you don't, this becomes more difficult to analyze. You need the ability to record these calls and verify that these calls came in, number one. So let's assume that you do have that. You're like most practices and you do have. If you don't, I would go get it. So what would I do next? Well, the next thing I would do is I would want to make sure that you establish and keep two statistics in your practice. Again, one of them you're already keeping, which is new patients. And let's define a new patient as somebody who comes into your practice, because I've seen people get funny with the definition. Well, an emergency patient isn't a new patient until they do an initial. Yeah, I disagree. They come into your business as a new patient, okay? That stat you already keep. The next statistic you're going to want to keep, you can call it whatever you want, leads, reaches, contacts. I've seen people call it different things, right? Responses. These are people who respond or reach into your practice as a new patient inquiry. This could come from a referral. This could come from a postcard. This could come from pay-per-click. This could come from Facebook. They could be a walk-in. They could be somebody who saw your sign as they were driving by. It's someone inquiring about becoming a patient in your practice. Call it whatever you want, leads, reaches, whatever. We tell clients call it new reaches. So I'm going to have new reaches and new patients. Now, why am I keeping these two statistics? Well, it's pretty obvious. If I'm getting a bazillion new reaches and I'm getting no new patients, that means that our conversion is terrible, right? If I'm getting 100 new reaches and I'm getting 80 new patients, well, my conversion is excellent. I'm going to want to track this. I'm going to make sure that I have a really good bead on tracking the number of new reaches that I'm getting. Because if I'm not tracking the number of new reaches, I'm going to have trouble analyzing if my new patients are good or bad, or if I need to fix my marketing or whatever. And it's important to know that the purpose of marketing is to create more new reaches. It's not to create more new patients. All marketing is going to do is make the phone ring or get somebody to inquire into your practice. It's not going to create a new patient. The practice creates a new patient once they've properly handled this new reach. So I've got my ability to record calls, and I'm keeping these statistics. I would keep these statistics daily, weekly, and monthly. So if I'm keeping them daily, it becomes very easy to keep them weekly and monthly because I just accumulate them. All right, so I have that. So the next thing I need is I need a new patient log. So what is a new patient log? It's basically a Google sheet or a spreadsheet which tracks how many new patient inquiries, new patient, new reaches, whatever you want to call it, the practice got in a given week or month. You might keep it on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, however you want to do it. Let's say you're keeping it monthly. And this would have, so I have a sample of one you can download that'll be on the episode webpage, a new patient log. And it's simple. It's, who took the call, when did the patient call, what was their name, what's their phone number, where did they come from, meaning how did they find out about the practice, they saw the sign, Google, etc. And then did they schedule, when did they come in, what were they calling about, did they want a cleaning, a second opinion, etc. So I'm tracking, okay, these were the number of patients or the patients that actually contacted my office or tried to reach my office this month that were interested in becoming a new patient. And I want to make sure I capture every single lead because this tells me what marketing is working and what isn't. Especially, this is why, again, it's important to find out where did this person come from. Maybe they all came from Facebook, in which case, okay, I should probably put some more effort or time into Facebook. You get the concept here? What if a bunch came from postcards? Well, I probably want to send out more postcards. This is where this tells me, is my marketing working or not? Because the marketing's job is to produce leads, right? So I'm keeping this for the entire new patient statistics. So everybody's on here. The postcard, the Google, the Facebook, the referrals, every lead that came into the practice this month is on there, and whether the person scheduled and showed up or not, all right? So now I want to find out, number one, I'm going to start auditing these things. So let's say I do Google pay-per-click and I have a specialized phone number for that. And I do postcards and I have a specialized phone number for that. So then if I have those things, I most likely, if I'm recording these calls, I have some form of a dashboard that I use that I can log into, which you may or may not log into, but you most likely have this ability. This is where you want to contact your marketing company because most people zone out when the marketing companies explain this. But let's take Google for a second. If you do Google pay-per-click, which most practices do, you're going to have some form of a dashboard you can log into where you can listen to your calls, but you can also see your calls. How many calls did I get? What date these calls come in? How long were these calls, etc. So let's take Google pay-per-click as an example, but you can audit all of your lead sources that you track regularly. If I have postcards with a dashboard and Google with a dashboard, I can use all of these as part of my audit. But let's just start with Google pay-per-click as an example. So now I'm going to audit my new patient log, which has a list of everybody who called in this month, against, let's take my Google pay-per-click. So I'll pull out my Google pay-per-click dashboard. I'll pull it out. It's on my computer. And I'll start at the beginning of the month. Let's say we're doing the month of July. So we'll start July 1st. There we go. And I'll look at my July new patient log, and I'll see the first call came in on July 1st at 10:22 a.m. So then I'm going to, look at it. Who was it? And I'm going to look at my new patient log. Is this person in my new patient log? That's the first place I'm going to start. I'm not even listening to phone calls yet. Now, most offices will find names missing, meaning there's going to be people in my Google pay-per-click dashboard that called my practice as a prospective new patient that are not listed in my new patient log. And look, I know mistakes occur, offices get busy, couple names, one name, two name, understood in a given month. I've seen it where 15, 20 names are missing. And this is a problem because then that can give me the idea if I look at, let's say I only got 20 new patients this month, and I look at my new patient log and I only got like 35 phone calls, and 20 of the Google phone calls weren't even listed on here, I'm going to think my Google's not working. You see, it's going to throw me off. And there's really no good reason. Look, there's reasons people can give you for everything. I can give you a reason for anything. It doesn't mean it's a good reason or a valid reason. There is no valid reason not to keep the new patient log up to date. It's extraordinarily simple. People should just do it, okay? And most people will when you ask them to and you make it important enough. So I'm going to audit because we're just doing Google now, up against my new patient log and see how many names are missing. If I'm missing a lot of names, that's a problem. Okay, that's the first thing. Do I have a problem in this area? Am I missing new patient opportunities? Because chances are if I'm missing Google names, I'm probably missing names from other things too. If I'm doing, let's say I'm tracking postcard calls, I might find the same thing. And then I'm, tracking other things. If I'm missing it in one area, there's a good chance you're missing it in another. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to look and see, am I missing names? All right, because if I am, we have problems. So now, once I've determined if I have a situation there or not, because now once I'm able to combine all this data, I have a really good idea of how many people are actually inquiring into the practice per month. So let's say I look at my dashboard and I added 15 names from the Google list and 10 names from the postcard list that weren't in my new patient log. And I look, well, gosh, I didn't just get 40 calls this month. I got like 65, 70 calls. This is pretty good, but I only got 20 new patients. This isn't good. Now I'm going to start auditing the phone calls. And here's what I'm going to recommend, because I've talked about this again ad nauseum, talked about it at great length, but people just don't get it. I would recommend the first time you audit these calls, let's say we're doing July, it should be the doc and the office manager, get some coffee. You might want something harder to drink when you start listening to some of these things. Not that I'm recommending that, but get some coffee and put it on a computer and click it on and put the speaker on, okay, and start listening. And prepare to cringe, because you're going to start to, and it's not, again, I'm not vilifying these receptionists who are taking these calls. I'm not doing any of that. But you're going to find that your phone is most likely not being answered the way that you would hope your phone is being answered. That's what I'm going to probably tell. I'm going to bet that this is what you're going to find. So you're going to start just with the beginning of your log. You start, July 1st, you start listening to the calls. I would start with the people who didn't schedule. That's where I'd begin. And, I'd be looking for a few things. Are they answering the phone the way you want the phone answered? If you don't have a specific script as to how you want your phone answered in your practice, I'd recommend as soon as you click this episode off to write one. It's really not difficult, but I hope you do. And it should be a standardized script that everybody follows. And it can be anything. It could be good morning, afternoon, evening. Thank you for calling Smile Dental. My name is Jeff. How can I help? Whatever it might be. Okay, but you should have a standardized script. And what I'd recommend that you do when you start training your staff is they should learn how to do that without thinking about it. They shouldn't have to, because I've seen it where, you have Bay Street Dental, right? And if there's a actual Bay Street Dental, this is a fictitious name that I just made up, so I'm not trying to copy you. But let's say it's Bay Street Dental, and you'll see people answer the phone, thank you for calling Bay Street. It's like they haven't even identified themselves as a dental practice, right? You have it answered a certain way, and it should be answered invariably that way. That is not optional. That's policy. Okay, so that's the first thing I'd be listening for. Then I would be listening for, what's the general demeanor of the person answering the phone? I've listened to some people answering the phone, and they sound like they're dead almost. They're half there. They sound like they're having a bad day. That's unacceptable. I'm remember, the purpose of marketing is to create leads. So I'm spending all this money and this person is calling into the business because I want to help these people, right? We want to help take care of their function, their aesthetic, and their health. And they call into my practice, and the person answering the phone sounds like they're half dead. That just doesn't work for me. Okay. And it's a bit like hitting a bit of a wall. Keep in mind that when someone calls your practice, they don't know you from a hole in the wall, especially if they find you on Google, dentist near me, and they call and that's their first impression. That's a bad impression. So you want to make sure your the demeanor of the person answering the phone matches the way that you want it handled, whether that's, dignified and serious or happy. I prefer sort of happy and helpful. That's what I prefer. Anyway. So are they answering the phone that way? Are they finding out the patient's name? I don't know how many calls I've listened to where, you're 5 minutes into the conversation and you don't even know the patient's name. I mean, generally, if I'm talking to somebody for more than a second, I'm finding out their name because that's just considered manners. I don't know. Well, hi, my name's Jeff. What's your name? Bill. Okay, Bill, nice to meet you. Right? I'm going to find out the patient's name. So it might be I answer the phone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for calling Bay Street Dental. Again, fictitious name. My name is Jeff. How can I help? Yeah, hi. I was calling. Do you do emergencies? Well, sure we do. Well, how can I help? Well, my crown fell off. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, let's see what we can do to help you. What's your name? My name's Bill. All right, Bill. Bill, what's your last name? Smith. Okay, Bill Smith. All right, great. All right, Bill, so tell me what's happening. And then Bill tells me what's happening, and then I take it from there, right? Now, that's the other thing I'm going to want to find out. Find out their name, find out their phone number if I need to. You're also going to have the number on caller ID, so whatever, right? But then I'm going to start I'm going to fill out my new patient log. I might be filling out a new patient intake form. Whoever's answering this new patient call, but I want to make sure that it's being handled the way that I want it handled. And what you'll find is you'll find all kinds of crazy stuff. And I wouldn't get upset. I wouldn't fly off the handle. I would just listen and make notes because I've listened to these and some of the stuff's just ridiculous. You hear a person calling in, they're having a problem with their wisdom tooth. And, they're on an antibiotic and they're talking to the front desk. The front desk is like, yeah, we can't do all wisdom teeth and we might want to place a bone graft after we extract. And, we may want to send you to an oral surgeon. So why don't I just give you the oral surgeon's number? Okay. Or, do you guys take XYZ insurance? Well, do you know, is it an HMO or a PPO? What's that? Just ridiculous questions these patients are being asked, or they're being put on hold constantly, or there's huge pauses. What's your name? Bill Smith. Pause. What's your name again? And you just Bill's pissed off after 5 minutes after talking to your receptionist. This is the type of stuff I'm going to want to listen to because here's what I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to tell you this and you can believe me or not believe me. I hope you do because it'll be to your benefit. This is where you're most likely losing a lot of new patients, is how you're handling these incoming calls. What's happening in your practice, you have no idea until you listen to these calls. That's why I recommend that the doc and the office manager listen to them together, okay? And the other thing to know is, let's say I started off with my Google pay-per-click dashboard. Let's say that's the only place calls are getting recorded. Let's say I'm not doing a postcard or I don't record all the practices calls. Well, if these Google pay-per-click calls are being mishandled, what do you think's happening to my other calls? Do you think they're all being handled beautifully? It's just they find out it's a Google call and they're screwing that one up? No, chances are my other calls are getting screwed up as well. You see? So I'm listening to all these. I'm making notes. I should have a script how my phone's handled. I should also have a good intake form, okay, which I have a copy, a new patient intake form. I'll give you a sample of one if you want. I'll put it as a download on the episode webpage. So I got the call log and the intake form. Now, the thing to know is most receptionists are not bad, okay? They just need training. They're not malicious, all right? They just don't know what they're doing. They're doing what they think that they should do, okay? But it's not what you want done, so you're going to have to train them. That said, there are some people that just don't belong on the phone. They're not good on the phone, and I would not have them on my phone. But again, keep in mind, you're spending all this money to get a lead, and the reach is weak. They just found you on Google. You got to give them a good first impression. So we want to make sure we're knocking it out of the park when they call in. So assuming I've made my notes on what needs to be corrected, and I have my script and I have my intake form, what do I do next? So I've analyzed the month of July. Okay, well, I need to fix this. So how am I going to fix it? Well, the first thing I need to do is take a look at, because there might be some organizational issues that might be causing some of the problem. Let's say that the person answering the phone is constantly putting people on hold. Well, I might find that they're also doing walkout statements and answering questions and answering the phone while they're trying to schedule new patients. Well, I might need to fix the way that my front desk is organized at that point. Because again, you have to think of that customer experience. For the customer, that's not a good experience being put on hold continuously. So you might need to do a little bit of division of labor. Now, I'm going to kind of just dump this out here and you can kind of do with it what you will. But let's say you're getting a lot of new patient calls. Let's say you're getting, 10 a day. You might need a new patient coordinator. This might be somebody who just handles new patient traffic. Their statistic is new patients. And so they handle the new patient calls coming in. They confirm all the new patients to make sure that they show up. I would never confirm new patients by text. I think that's ridiculous. It's just like, would you confirm a $20,000 procedure on your schedule by text? No, you would probably call this person unless it was somebody you knew was going to show up. You're putting too much at risk there. So this is the person who does everything to make sure new patients arrive, and then they arrive and they greet them. How you doing? They might even give them a tour of the practice, whatever it is that you do in your practice. And then when they're not handling anything having to do with new patients, they're asking for referrals and they're doing stuff for social media and they're recording testimonial videos of patients and things of that nature. And if you have an implant funnel, they might be following up in some of these calls. Really depends on the amount of traffic that you have. So if I have a new patient coordinator, I might also have a receptionist, in which case the receptionist is answering the phone, and it might be, good afternoon. Thank you for calling Smile Dental. My name is Jeff. How can I help? Well, I just saw your ad on Google, and I want to get a second opinion. I really need a second opinion. Okay, great. What's your name? Bill Jones. All right, great. Bill, have you been to our practice before? No, I haven't. Okay, great. I'm going to actually turn you over to Barbara. She's our new patient coordinator, and she's going to take care of you. Give me 1 second. And you flip them over to Barbara, and Barbara schedules them, right? Fine. If you don't have enough traffic for a new patient coordinator, then what I would do, I'd still have my division of labor at the front. Let's say you have a scheduler or a receptionist and a treatment coordinator or something like this, and an office manager. I would probably have one person who's best at doing this designated as the person who gets new patient calls. Because, again, we don't want to blow this opportunity. So let's say my scheduler is the best person, so they get the call first. If they're not available, who does it go to next? Maybe it goes to the office manager. If they're not available, it goes to this person, right? So I've got sort of a tree of where this thing goes. Now, what I'm going to do is make sure that everybody who's handling these, as well as anybody who might end up handling these, is drilled, role played to the point where anybody can handle these dead on. I just want it to be, even maybe one of my assistants. If things go nuts and I need somebody to answer the phone, I'm never in a position to where my new patient calls are getting blown because they're being handled properly, right? Everybody knows the script on how to answer the phone. Everybody knows how to do the intake form. Again, I have people whose job it is, but I have backups and they're all trained. So I have full redundancy. What if my new patient coordinator wants to take 3 days off? Well, then, what am I going to do? I need someone to handle it while they're gone. And ideally, I'm not going to do it with a temp because I'm putting a lot of effort into getting new patients, right? So I need other people trained on this as well. And once I've done all that, I would do a couple things. I would drill this regularly. I would just carve out some time, maybe an hour a week. You might go, I don't have time for that. Well, okay. Well, if you recovered that 5 or 6 new patients you should have gotten, you probably have time for that, right? So I would make some time. And I'd spend a little bit of time on it every week until everybody was fully trained. I would still continue to audit my call log monthly, even if everybody's doing great. Because if you're doing well and you're getting more and more new patients, you're going to expand, you're going to add personnel. That adds and you're going to lose personnel as time goes on, which creates the situation where I may have people messing up new patient calls. So I'm just going to continue this new patient call log audit and these call audits. Maybe I won't listen to every call every month once I've got everybody trained, but I will be doing random call audits as I go. And I would still be reconciling the new patient log to the call logs that I have. Do you know what I mean? Like looking to see is everybody that's calling in off of Google or my postcard or whatever, are they showing up in my new patient log? And keep in mind, the first time that you do this, it's going to be pretty bad. You're going to find all kinds of stuff. I wouldn't get caught up in that because in most cases, like I said, you have good people. They're doing what they think is best. It just isn't turning out the way that you want it. So the heart's in the right place. We just got to train him to do it the way that we want it. So I wouldn't freak out about that. I would just, look at it, make a list of what I need to fix and fix it, Continue to do it, and it will improve as time goes on. The other thing I'd recommend if you want to, because it's ideal to have some training materials for this stuff, I'm going to recommend two things. So you've got that call log or the new patient log I mentioned. We have that intake form you can have as a free download. There's two other things. We do have a course on our online platform on DDS Success called Phone Skills, which is about handling incoming calls, especially new patient calls. You can check that out. I'll put a link to it on the episode webpage. You can also, we have an ebook on phone scripts that you can get. It's free. You can download that as well. I'll put a link to that on the episode webpage. And again, folks, I don't know what else to tell you. If you just tighten this up, you spend a little bit of time. The worst you're going to do, I bet you, is 5 extra new patients per month, if not 10, 20 plus. It's really worth the time. You may not believe me. Try it and tell me how it goes, okay? I do hope this helps. Don't forget about the downloads. And if you want to find out more about MGE, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you at the next episode.